Hi. You know what? It's a little dead in here, so I think we should do some music. What is minimal house? How does that sound?
Well, house is a type of thing that you can do lots of, but I mean, let's go for it. See, just before you came on, I was going through making my rock playlists and
Oh, okay.
through Spotify, and having quite a lot of fun. Um,
That's great.
I've got to make a 6-hour playlist. So
6 hour playlist. So I'm glitching out. I'm gonna fix this in just a second here. I promise. You don't have to sit here and look at this for much longer. Hopefully, I don't know.
you never know.
You know. So what happens is I'm using a Oh no.
You're not because you've gone.
Bye.
I
Bye. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's the OBS, and then there's this one, and then hopefully that should fix it. No more jittery.
Yep, that's fine.
Oh man. Okay.
How have you been? It's been like a minute.
It's a welcome back to your once monthly human factor.
Oh dear.
I feel like I feel like we should provide reasons, but the reasons have been I've had a busy day. And then Barry comes back the next week and says, I've had a busy day. And then I come back the next week and go, I've had a busy day.
Life's kind of got in the way.
Yeah. You know, it happens. But hey, we're here today. I've still had a busy day, and admittedly, like I was on the couch asleep for like the 10 minutes I had in between then and now, but I'm here and we're talking human factor stuff. Yes, we're back ish, kind of. I don't know. There's no I guess we can pull back the curtain a little bit. You want to pull back the curtain a little bit on this one, Barry?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. How's our show notes coming?
They're done. Look, hold on a sec. There you go.
It says new Coco. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. What does he got? Running
the NHS, which was NVIDIA, and new logo.
New logo. I thought I saw new Coco. Yeah.
No, that would be different. That would be a different podcast.
So okay, we got the show notes. They're there on your flip pad. That's great. That is the show notes for today.
Yeah, pretty much, because I was like, well, we're clearly not going to do any show notes, so I reached out I did some drop downs on the socials, and said, please provide us with some stuff,
content.
Yeah, give us something to talk about. So we've been set a couple of smaller or medium-sized challenges, whichever way you're looking at. One of them is around the NHS is obviously a socialised healthcare system here in the UK, National Health Service. How do we manage, and who should be managing human factors within the NHS? And the challenges, I was like, well, thanks for that. You could have just given us something light and frivolous to talk about, yet you give us the biggest challenge facing the UK at this moment in time, and has been actually the topic of a Twitter thread that has been ongoing now for, I think, 2 weeks solid. It's the longest Twitter thread I've ever been a part of, and it's been an interesting thing to watch it evolve. And then the other thing is, my friend David Thompson dropped in on LinkedIn and just said NVIDIA, which I'm presuming he's talking about the surge in AI sales, or that they've had and that they've announced this week. But I've got to admit, I don't know a huge amount. So I was just
we can all learn together. Look, here's the thing: is that we've been busy, folks, and I don't have enough. I don't have as let me put this simply. I don't have as much free time as I used to to go through the news every week and find all the news stories in Human Factors News. I know that was something that a lot of people really liked, myself included. I stayed up to date on a lot of stuff in the field, and I feel a little disconnected, to be honest. So we could figure it out together. And so there's no structure for tonight. I want to call out a few things here. First things first, if you're watching us live or joining us live, thank you. We appreciate you being here. We'd love to hear from you, either in the chat. So please feel free to comment wherever you're watching or listening to this live. If you want to, we would love to hear from you as if you were calling us. So you can be a live caller. There's a little QR code right up here in the corner. You can scan that little thing. It'll put you into a Restream room with us. You'll be here.
You should all do that. I mean, I would almost put it another way. If you don't chat with us and tell us, work with us on this and help us, give us some topics to talk about, this could be a really short show.
Well, let's put it this way. So what happens, you scan this QR code, and then there's a little chat. It's a private chat between you, me, and Barry. You put backstage. You let us know what you want to talk about. We'll find some way to weave that in. We'll keep you backstage. You tell us whether or not you want to be video on, video off, and then we'll bring you in, and you could pose your question, pose your comment. We'll all chat about it together. It's Human Factors. So that's one way you can interact with the show. You can do that live right now. We'll get you in. The other way that you can interact with the show is, of course, you can leave us a voicemail. That is another QR code right here. That is a link to our website. If you just want to shout obscenities into the void at us, you can do that right here. We'll listen to everything you send us. We may not respond. We may not put it on the show, but we'll listen to everything. So it's right there. And of course, times are tough. It's hard to get to the podcast studio, but with a little encouragement, we might get in a little more frequently. But that's neither here nor there. That's kind of outside of the bounds. Support us if you want to. But
don't be shy.
If you don't, that's totally fine. All right, I'm going to leave this Be a Live Caller right up here. If you want to be a live caller, please do so. And with that, or again, you can just leave things in the chat. We're here for you. All right, looks like we got a chat here.
We do, and they're so nice.
They're so nice. Sorry for bothering you. Yeah, you want to read this one or should I?
Yes, sorry for bothering you. Which, I mean, that's a great way to start the thing. They've got something. I want to offer promotion of your channel.
Oh.
Viewers, followers, views, chatbots, etc. The price is lower than any competitor. That's good that they've done the research to know that they're the lowest. The quality is guaranteed to be the best. Again, they've redone their research. Flexible and convenient order management panel, chat panel, everything you need in your hands. Huge number of custom settings. Go to them. It's like
go to them. We're not going to promote them on the show. No,
we're not. But thanks for the offer. They're greatly appreciated.
Like we need followers.
Yeah. That might mean that people listen to what we do rather than us just talking into a bubble.
Hey, I see. You know what? Hang on. It's actually. Hold on. This is fun. I have not actually checked our numbers in a while because we've been on and off here. And so I do want to know if people are still listening. I mean, I see people joining us live, so thank you for joining us live. I really appreciate that. That is fantastic. Thank you for being here. It's amazing. And okay. All right. Yeah. We still have listeners, which is kind of crazy. Wow. Obviously numbers are down, but we still have quite a few of you out there who are listening to the show. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with us. And
the last episode we published was January 25th. And
wow. Yeah. And I'm trying to work out how many have we only done one this year and this is our second? Or have we done more than that?
We did one on January 11th, one on January 25th, and this is our third show this year.
Oh, so 2 a month. I mean, that's like once a fortnight.
You know what? Yeah, I guess so.
That's fine. It could be worse. We could be ChatGPT and just chucking random stuff at people at the moment.
Okay. Do we want to jump into the AI stuff? Hang on. Let me. If we're doing this, let me just record like a little intro, so at least it's towards the beginning, and I can chop out the rest of this, and we can just continue the conversation. But
okay.
Hey, hi everybody. Hi, welcome back to Human Factors Cast. This is episode something 299, I guess, according to my records. I'm your host Nick Rome, joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Yo.
And potentially some live guests. Who knows? This is a live recording. This is not something that we have planned out in the normal sort of plan that we normally do for a show. So hopefully this will be great. Yeah, we're here. We're live. And you brought up AI. You said something about ChatGPT.
Yeah. In fact, well, let's first start as we mean to go on. So this is very much a live show in that anybody can join in the chat. Anybody can get on any of the streams. So whatever or however you're consuming this, if you're consuming it live, drop a message in that chat because you will help scope the show. You will mold what the next hour or so looks like. And so we can start off by saying good evening to Neil, who's joined us in the chat. And I think the idea that you think this is human error might be bold in the fact that you think something's gone wrong. It's not really gone wrong. It just hasn't gone anywhere. We sort of chatted about, an hour or so, maybe a couple of hours ago, where I dropped a chat and said, are we doing it tonight? Yeah, all right then. And here we are. No planning, no forethought. So we are trying and experimenting with new ways of doing things, seeing if we can be more dynamic and more thrilling, living by the seat of our pants and flying on
part
the adrenaline.
Of the plan.
Yeah, it's a new way of looking at things. Do you think I've got us out of it? Do you think that's convincing?
Maybe. I think part of it. I mean, part of it is making the assumption that we come into our normal shows well prepared.
True. Yes.
And we don't always do that. We do that most of the time. But so let's talk about some AI stuff, because there's some embarrassing things happening in the AI world. I want to start with the Gemini stuff. Have you seen the Gemini stuff?
Oh, I haven't seen the Gemini stuff. So,
okay. All right. So I'll educate you. I'll send some stuff. There's some let me just say right-wing talking points that have been like AI is erasing white people from history.
Okay, that'll do that.
And this stems from good intentions, but this is human error. Okay, this is human error. So what's happened is Google Gemini, if you ask it to create an image of, let's say, a historical figure like the founding fathers. Okay, that's an example. Like, it won't necessarily do like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson. It won't do those.
Okay.
They've tweaked. Okay, look, like, again, this is a right-wing talking point, so I'm not going to get like super into the weeds here. The idea behind this is very great. It's that Google has coded their GPT, their image generator to be more representative of the folks who use the program. And so you see a much more diverse cast of characters when it generates images. You say, generate this, and it might come back with somebody who's not white.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great, because that's diversity and inclusion, especially when it comes to generated images. Because you think about everything that's out there, traditional media is like white dominated. And so what they're trying to do is tweak that algorithm to be a little bit more representative of the true population. And I think that's great. What's happening, though, is when people request images of historical figures,
actual figures, yes,
you'll get like a black Thomas Jefferson, and it's just so they've issued a statement, and I have to find the statement because I do want to read this.
So while you're finding that, just because I only realized this recently, so Gemini is the new Bard, isn't it?
Gemini is the new Bard. Yes, that's correct. So the official statement here. Geez, where's the official statement? Because I don't want to misrepresent. This is journalism.
This is journalism live.
Live journalism. So, I mean, another more extreme case is you could say something along the lines of like, show me a World War II German soldier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the official statement here is looking for it, trying to find it. It's incredibly hard to find, actually. So if anybody has that link available, please let me know. This is great podcasting. Yes, thanks, Neil. Appreciate that.
Do you sense slight sarcasm there?
Okay, here it is. We're aware that Gemini is offering inaccuracies in some historical image generation depictions. We're working to improve these depictions immediately. Gemini's AI image generation does generate a wide range of people, and that's generally a good thing because people around the world use it, but it's missing the mark here. So, yes, I think
fair enough. At least when things like this are happening, they're picking up. It's a bit like, so the other one that went slightly amok this week has been ChatGPT. One of our constant favorites to go back to. It seems to have had a bit of a minor meltdown where people would be conversing with it and it just starts coming out with gibberish, starts speaking Spanglish without any prompting. It just goes into it, and then this is where I think it's got some people slightly freaked out by suggesting that it's in the room with them, and so some of the messages that you read in the reports, it just starts shouting things like "happy listening" at you and things like this. So basically, they had lots of people started reporting it. So OpenAI have noted it as an issue. They haven't really said why it's done this, but they're monitoring it and they're looking at it. Some are suggesting that essentially ChatGPT has a temperature setting.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah. So if it's low, it tends to behave really normally, rationally, blah blah blah. And if you set the temperature a bit high, then it can be a bit more, I guess, free thinking, a bit more diverse, a bit more unusual. And so people are suggesting, and I think this is guesswork, it's not an actual thing, that the temperature setting had been raised a bit. So it's not the first time that's happened with ChatGPT. It's kind of happened before, and then they've raised it, they've reined it in a bit to make that work. So, but it's interesting to see that there's a number of AI tools that are trying to, or are breaking into the mainstream, are still having issues and bits of meltdown and things like that. So it makes you, certainly from our perspective, from an HF perspective, it does question, how do we know that when we're using it, it's actually giving us good output, or what we consider good output for what we want, and it isn't just basically giving you curveballs because it's going, either its temperature's a bit high or it's just going slightly off the rails. There's nothing we can do that except assume or look at the output that we're getting and being able to understand whether it's good stuff or not.
Right. This would be a good time to check in. Are you still using ChatGPT in some of your day-to-day stuff? Like, because I know we had talked about. Yeah, yes, you are.
Yeah, so I'm playing with it on a number of fronts actually. So one is, I sort of go a bit hot and cold. I tend to use it if time is a massive factor, to try and start thinking and stuff like that. So I'm still using it in that sort of kickstart role that I have
Mhm.
done. But one of the things that you've been able to do more recently, I think we might have spoken about it on the last ones, but you can now start creating your own custom GPTs.
Yes.
And so I've been experimenting with, can I get different types of HF practitioner GPTs sorted out? So, for example, human practice integration. So the ability to model a project, look at creating your HFI plan, creating, the evidence for a case report and things like that, to see if I could actually use it as my HFI engineer in the room. So I can chuck in and say, right, I've got this sort of project. And so it'll come back, and the first thing it'll ask you is, right, what's the project name? Who's the HFI lead? And start building in asking you for some of that knowledge to get you some of that elicitation going on, understand who the stakeholders are, and then it'll start then pushing stuff out at you, saying, do you know this information, to start trying fill gaps, and then understand where the gaps in the knowledge are, and therefore understand what phase of the project you're in, and give you some prompts on where you should go, what you should do. So I've been playing with it a bit like that. But equally, and then the integration of some of the imaging now is interesting. I had to go this week at seeing if I could integrate SysML and do some enterprise architecture type stuff with it. Turns out that it can't draw SysML diagrams. They're terrible. But yeah, so I'm still playing with it. I'm probably not as... I keep on having to remember to use it as opposed to it being a huge part of my work stream. But it's sort of one of these things that I sit there and go, I need to do this. I need to do it really quickly. Oh, this is normally what I'd use ChatGPT for. Not right. That it's the first tool I go to. So, What about you? Have you gone off it, or have you found other things with it, or is it?
It's fallen off a lot for me in terms of my overall usage. Like, it used to be very much like, how can I build around this? How can I integrate this into workflows and processes? And the more I see of it, the more it breaks in ways that are fascinating. Just say fascinating. But I think because of its infancy, like, I'm still an early adopter. I'm still somebody who follows the trends and is doing active research into the AI space and is excited about it. As a tool, I've stopped using it so much for larger scale things, and it's more like quick requests, which I think is what it's built for, actually. But it's a fancy fancy autocomplete, and when you do these massive prompts, building it up to do something that it's not built to do, you gotta have to. It almost takes more time to go back to the thing and try to have a conversation with it to get you the output that you want than it would be to just hammer on the project and get it done. Like, it is one of those things. You mentioned generation of like diagrams. Have you seen, since we're talking about the AI stuff, have you seen Sora?
No, not yet. I've heard about it. I haven't explored it.
Okay, so I think we can show these since they're AI generated, but what I should do here is here I'll go ahead and share some of this. So Sora, the idea behind Sora here, this article comes to us from MIT Tech Review. Sora is a video generation device and or a service. Not a device.
It's an open AI tool, isn't it?
It is an open AI tool, yeah. So this is kind of an extension of GPT, and you can see here this video is like a drone shot of this couple walking through streets of a city, and it's snowing outside, and it looks pretty convincingly real. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's go through the list here. So this is another thing generated by Sora here. This is a little like cute kind of Pixar-y character playing with fire, candle melting. Okay. You got another one here. I'm not sure. Looks like the seafloor, maybe. What is this? Like a stylized seafloor. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. This is all done with prompting, which is actually really interesting to think about. That you put in a prompt and I'm trying to see some more stuff here. Some mammoths.
I mean, where we use like sort of B-roll in things. I mean, this takes the B-roll generation to a whole new level, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, I'm quite impressed with this. I was also quite impressed with ChatGPT when it came out, and my impression has, like, it's still transformational. Like, let's not be.
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of thoughts on AI and the trends that are happening right now in AI, specifically around adoption of AI in companies and the AI strategy being employed at companies, and how that's maybe not the best option right now. Put it that way. So lots of thoughts. I don't want to get into them. Not here, not now, but I do have them.
What is interesting on the Sora page, if you go and look at it, they're actually highlighting or recognizing that there are safety issues with what they're now doing, and so they've got an entire section dedicated around saying, basically, we're not going to make Sora available until we are sure that it's safe to use. They're red teaming it with domain experts in areas like misinformation, hate, content bias, and so they're using red teaming approaches to test it and things like that. So it's good from that perspective that we're learning, or that they're learning about how these things can be deployed, how they should be deployed, and how to keep people safe while we deploy them. But you look at some of the, even just flicking down this page, looking at some of these videos, they are
quite impressive.
They're just. I mean, I'm watching one here around. The prompt is: the camera follows behind a white vintage SUV with black roof rack, and it looks, apart from the spelling on the thing, it still can't spell. But the
Denver.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, that actually might be a brand name, but I'm assuming it's trying to say Dane. No, I don't know. But the dust being thrown up, the terrain it's going through.
I mean, like, dude, hang on. You know what? As long as we're talking about it, we probably should bring these back up. Let me. So once again, here's the Sora. Here's Sora on OpenAI, and this has a lot more stuff that we can look at here. So this is, and I like that they actually show the prompts here. So this is: a stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with a warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long red dress, and black boots, and carries a black purse. She wears sunglasses and red lipstick. She walks confidently and casually. The street is damp and reflective, creating a mirror effect of the colorful lights. Many pedestrians walk about. It's crazy to think that this person is not real. This place is not real. This is all generated by AI, and that to me is the interesting part. Like, it's fascinating. Here's the woolly mammoth that we saw. What is this one? A movie trailer featuring the adventures of a 30-year-old spaceman wearing a red wool knitted motorcycle helmet. Blue sky, sail desert, cinematic style, shot on 35mm film. Vivid colors. I mean, this is like, it's pretty cool. Like, you could do some fun stuff with this. Prompt: drone view of waves crashing against the rugged cliffs along Big Sur's Gary Point Beach. Crashing blue waves create white tipped waves.
But again, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, in that so much effort needs to be put into prompt engineering. because you can't just. I mean, you have to curate prompts, don't you? What we've learned quite a lot is you will rarely get the prompt right first time. You need to hone it and make it work for you. And sometimes by the time you put all the effort into writing the prompt, you could have done it yourself first time.
And it's great for repeatable tasks. If you know you just need to change a few variables for something, and you change those variables and the prompt works, then it's great. But it's like the one-off tasks that it's just not as great for. Photorealistic close-up of 2 pirate ships battling each other as they sail inside a cup of coffee.
I mean, that is pretty impressive.
A young man in his 20s is sitting on a piece of cloud in the sky reading a book.
Just what it says in the tin.
It does. And I love this one, though. Historical footage of California during the gold rush. I love that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And it does look like a drone shot just going through that type of thing. So I mean, I think it has proven, considering, I mean, we do talk about AI quite a lot, and I think quite rightly so, because it is evolving, it's doing its stuff.
Well, there's so many human factors with AI. I mean, it truly is sort of this wild west of human factors and how it integrates with humans and technology, and just this fascinating front that we actually discussed this on the show a while back, where we were kind of taking a look at the bleak the bleak 2023 and the outlook for 2024, and kind of looking at what the trends were. Do you remember that episode? Because I do. We talked about some of the things that Jacob Nielsen was talking about in terms of where the trends are going, and AI is definitely one of them. And people are going to be looking for folks who have been researching AI, because there are so many points of failure for AI.
It is, but it's also organizational as well, isn't it? I mean, if you remember a friend of the show, Kate Preston, when she came on, and she's currently doing her PhD in the use of AI in the health sector, or more specifically around hospitals. And one of the big takeaways that she keeps on coming back to is that actually the AI can do an awful lot of stuff. As you know, we use it in various amounts to do really cool stuff. But unless the organization is ready to use it, then you're never going to exploit it to its full or anywhere near its full potential. You get pockets of people using it to maybe do, kind of what we've done in the past, like do generation of scripts, generation of, largely not, I'm not going to call it inconsequential, but when you consider the power of what it could do, we still got to do in some quite mundane things. And unless the organization is ready to actually adopt some of this stuff, we're nowhere near it. The other big winner in the AI thing, actually, which we've never really talked about, is the chip companies behind it, and that's come to the fore this week with Nvidia. Their stock price jumped 16% this week, and this was suggested on LinkedIn by my good friend David Thompson to talk about it. And literally, I'd put the prompt on LinkedIn saying, "Right, we're having a chat tonight. Give us some topics to talk about." He literally just come back with Nvidia exclamation mark. So I went back to him and said, "What about them?" And it wasn't until I then did a quick search. He was like, "Actually, they've had a massive cost boost." And it's really interesting that them in particular, because I'm suffering from the lack of a decent NVIDIA graphics card to produce some of my podcast stuff, which I didn't realize how much I was relying on the NVIDIA publisher suite and some of the background tools to make what I was doing more efficient. And now I've got a new desktop box that is a small form factor, so I can't get a full-size graphics card in there. I can't get a decent RTX graphics card, therefore I can't use half the NVIDIA tools. It's just really, really interesting seeing how that has flown through. So NVIDIA is one of the big chip makers who are benefiting from this surge in artificial intelligence, because we need powerful processing chips to push some of this stuff out.
Okay, we got a really interesting one here on LinkedIn.
Oh, thanks, Trevor. Yeah, no, that's
Trevor.
So
right,
Trevor
let's
Dobbins,
read it.
again, good friend of ours, and I recently interviewed him on 1202. He's asking thoughts on how to use AI in defense behind the firewall. So the biggest, actually, there is lots of work going on in the UK defence side of things. There's a organisation that's out there called the Defence AI Centre, which you can find. They've been pushing some stories about out on LinkedIn about what they've been doing. Fundamentally, it's about the sharing of knowledge within defence behind the firewall that the AI can learn from, and how they can control that, how they can trust that. I think I'm probably not going to be amazing anybody with my massive intellectual insight when I say that there's a lot of issues within the defense realm, and I think no matter which country you look at, not every just because they're with the UK defense or US defense, even within all these people, there's a that we don't share information easily. And so when we want to use AI for either analytics or anything like that, we can't use it efficiently because we don't share the information. If we could find the ways of sharing information, even common information within defense, then we could use AI because it would then learn. It would be able to learn about this stuff. But you've got the issues on the need to know aspect. How do we make sure that AI only knows what it needs to know, and therefore the people who can access the information?
Yeah, here's another point that goes exactly with what you're saying here, Barry. I find it unable to provide citations to what information it gives. It relies on open data only. And so, yes, I agree. I think that's absolutely right. That there's multiple ways in which we could dissect this AI and defense conversation. One of which is, how do you use AI as a human factors researcher in your process and tools? And then there's I think the larger issue of, how do you communicate with and use AI as a tool for various defense capabilities. And that's a tricky one to talk about.
Certainly the first one is a bit easier. So how to use AI as an HF tool, because we're kind of doing it already. As long as you're really cognizant of the material you're feeding in and making sure that it is not classified, or you can talk around an issue to ChatGPT in such a way that you're not putting any restricted or confidential information into it, you can get the sort of output you're looking for. Because really what we're looking for is in terms of process and things like that. The only way to go to the second point that you made, and I'm going to tread slightly carefully, is if we want to use AI to get the best out of data within the defense boundary, so behind the firewall, the AI has to sit behind the firewall, and it has to have access to that data, and otherwise you're not going to get the use out of it. And therefore, if you're not going to trust it with the information to make it worthwhile, there's no point in doing it, one would suggest. And it's going to be tricky. It's going to be really, really difficult because it's not just a technical issue. Because we could build an AI, in fact, AIs do exist that work within boundaries. That's fine. It's whether it's that human machine trust issue. So the trust in that human machine teaming piece, which is why it's such a popular subject now, around how you trust the out you're getting, but that the system is working within the bounds and it hasn't leaked out anywhere, or it's not leaking information, because that's risky. Knowledge is power, quite literally. So yeah, I think that it's an absolutely fascinating question that Trevor's brought up, because there are so many facets to it once you start unpicking it.
There really is. It's like, how do you
not just technical.
The whole cybersecurity issue. How do you make sure that the person accessing whatever AI system is the person that needs to be, right? You can get around that through various forms of verification, but then also like the diffusion of responsibility for decisions that are made. If an AI were to recommend a decision in defense, I'm being very vague here intentionally, but if an AI system were to recommend a course of action in defense and a decision maker followed through with that course of action and it led to terrible outcomes, who would be at fault? Would it be the human, or would it be the AI, or would it be the company who made the AI, or where does the liability stand? And I think for a lot of those reasons, you're not seeing that's the human trust piece of it. Can the human trust the output of the AI in that it is a great decision? Are there things that the human has knowledge of that the AI system does not have knowledge of, that sort of I guess peppers the judgment of the outcome from the AI system? Like, there's so many things here. If a thing were to do a thing. Yeah.
One of the ways I abstract it out at the moment, when I've been working with this problem recently, is the Google Maps analogy. So when satellite navigation first started coming out, or just even mapping route finding tools, you would put in the route, you put where you wanted to go, and you would check that route. It would give you the route from A to B, and you would go, well, actually, I wouldn't go that way. I would do this. I would do that. When Google first started giving it the things, if it sent you a way that you weren't sure about, you would go the way that you knew, because you didn't trust it. It might send you down silly roads and this, that, and that. But as it's now getting better and it's becoming more normal to use it, you now just trust the Google. You now just trust where it's going to send you. You rarely, even if you know the route, you tend to use language like, oh, well, it must know traffic, it must have a reason why it's sending me down this route. And the analogy here is that right now, if we were to use AI in defense quite seriously, or more so than say we are at the moment, you're going to have that bit where people, quite right, are not going to trust the new technology. They're going to check it. They're going to back it up. They're going to drill into, right, why did you give me that answer? Why have you made the decision that you've made? Fast forward 5 years, 10 years maybe, and we're then into that situation of what you were hypothesizing on was, it spits you out an answer, go do this, and you don't challenge it. You just say, oh, it must have told me to do it for a good reason. That's why we're using these tools. It's to speed up decision making. It's to do this, that, and the other. This system told me to go and do this, so I've gone and do it. And you could have some quite significant consequences. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be quite the ride.
Oh, it's so fun to talk about defense and skirting the issues, and
yeah.
Good questions.
I'm trying to work out whether we can dive into that deeper with it without me losing my security clearance. I don't think we can. I think we've kind of short of me losing my job. But I think it is going to be an interesting 5 or 10 years, because, like I say, the technology is pretty much getting there. It's now the human issues that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
And also things like it not having meltdowns.
I know there's at least in I can't say what the training. I do know that there's like already AI awareness training. This is a good change of subject here, Barry. Do you want to get into this? I like this change.
It'll get us out of some awkward conversations.
It'll get us out of a tight spot. Thank you so much, Dibs. I love this. All right, Dibs on YouTube. Here's a different track. What industries do you think human factors should or could move into that we don't currently? This is interesting and fascinating for so many reasons, because in some cases you don't know that human factors is being applied. If it's being applied correctly, then you don't maybe notice it as you should. Maybe we could talk about things that we know of. I felt the clearance demon circling. Thanks, Dibs.
I mean, so there's one area which I think is fascinating. There is bits of HF being done in it already, but it's still relatively immature, and that's the farming and agriculture industry. There is, because when you think about it, historically, farms were run by people, by families, handed down from father to son, mother to daughter, that type of thing. So it would be farms would be handed on. As technology has evolved, and historically there was always hundreds of people working on a farm. You'd have everything was manual labor, from ploughing to planting to everything was done by people all of the time in all weathers, 365 days a year, and that's like animals, all that sort of stuff. We now have the case where there's so much automation going on in the farming industry. So the use of tractors, where you've got large bits of machinery ploughing fields. So one person can plough like not just one field in a day, but multiple fields in a day, but to prep them and then sow them and do all that sort of stuff. And that's even getting more automated, as they can use GPS to make sure that they get really good tight seeding and things like that. But as we get more and more automation, bigger machinery doing things, we have less people within a particular farm, within a particular space. They now have less people. So if there's an accident, there's actually less people around to raise the alarm. It's harder to get help to people, and typically the accidents they have, because it's involving big dangerous machinery, blades and crushing things and big bits of metal, the injuries tend to be quite severe. So there is some research going on. So I did a interview on 1202 with a PhD student called Jill Boots, who's done work into this historically, and because of that interview and listening to one of her lecturers, a lady I believe called Amy Irwin, researching in this area, I just find it thoroughly fascinating. And then Dibs has come back in the chat saying they've spoken to farmers about this. It is one of the most dangerous injuries, but it's hard to get the message across. It is cultural as well as anything else. And I think that's true, because, again, going back to the point I made at the start, where it's their family businesses. They're family businesses that are handed down. So the training hands down. It's not like there's comparatively few people go, when they're growing up, just randomly go and buy a farm and start farming. It's something you're born into. And so there's all of the issues that has when it hands down. What's your thoughts on the farming industry, Nick? Are you a burgeoning farmer
I'm not a burgeoning farmer, but I am pro human factors in agriculture. We've actually done an episode on this. I believe it was like close to 200 that we talked about smart farms, and that was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed so much that I remember it. That says a lot. It's an interesting discussion, because you're right. There's, with all this automation going on, how do you get the farmers involved in, or even farm hands involved in process and improving those process, and for safety reasons, for usability reasons, X, Y, and Z. I think that's really interesting. To answer the original question, I think there's a couple other industries that I actually really feel passionate that human factors could benefit from. The first thing that came to my mind was legal.
Okay. Yeah. Expand.
Okay, so how many times have you read like a terms of service or gotten a legal document or something and nothing is clear?
All the time.
There,
Yeah.
there could be like a ton of. I'm just thinking about making things easier for the end person, like understanding what the consequences of not paying this thing is, or what happens if you don't show up to court, or making court process easier,
Hmm.
making law easier to understand, not only for those who participate in judgment and witness and testimony, but also for defendants, everybody involved. I think there's so many opportunities with legal that,
Yeah.
from lawyers to attorney, like everybody who's involved in this process, there's so many things going on that human factors could really have a huge impact on. So that's the first thing I thought. And I also, construction is another one that I thought of, but it's great to see in the comments here. Dib said, construction is the one that I'm trying to break into at the moment. So that's great. I'm glad you're trying to break into construction, because construction is another thing. You can imagine the safety of not only the tools and the equipment that they use on site, but also the process and procedure by which the project managers of a construction site start to organize all that stuff. The other thing that I immediately thought of, Barry, and I'm surprised that you didn't bring this up, is environmental conservation and sort of the human factors of green energy and climate change and all those things, right? So I think you actually had an effort on this a while back. How's that effort going? Is it still an ongoing thing? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the whole issue around climate ergonomics is still ongoing. We've got in fact, I've got a PhD student about to start with me to study support for episodic thinking and climate change. So there is definitely work going on around that, and I'm working with Professor Andrew Thatcher from South Africa, part of the IEA, and we're currently writing a chapter of a book on climate ergonomics and how we can do something with it. So yes, the climate thing that's possibly why I didn't think of it straight away, because I kind of think I'm already there. But then I would. So yes, that is definitely going on. But again, it's one of these things, and that links to one of the other areas that I would like to see human factors get more involved in, and that's just government in general, government decision making, and government delivery.
Policy, yeah.
Absolutely. The way that we get elected representatives to see, hear, and represent people, their constituents, etc., etc. I think they could do with a healthy dose of understanding user engagement, understanding how work is described, work is done, all that sort of stuff. I think is something that the government could do a lot more of and would benefit from. So yeah, that was
the policy side, because when I think of government, I think of like, oh well, DoD has a bunch of policy and procedure that they have human factors standards, but when you talk about sort of government representation, yes, absolutely, there's ways in which human factors can affect policy, and I think there's been some large strides here in stateside, at least, and not in the UK necessarily, but Neil, who's in the chat right now, who I talked to at HFES last year, talked a lot about the GRC and how they're doing some good work to represent human factors as a science when it comes to policy making. And so that's a great effort that we're doing here. I don't know if anything could be kicked up and spun up like that in the UK, but worldwide, we need more of that representation. We need a seat at the table, because from the legislative side, how you manage with them and how the legislative side should function more is what Neil says in chat here. I also want to, since we're talking about Neil, he made a funny here, and I laughed. I have to call attention to it. Other industries that human factors could be influential or what was the original question? Impactful to is commercial or recreational submarines.
like 2 episodes on that. Yes, you're not wrong. But actually, one of the big takeaways from that was around legislation again, was the fact that recreational submarines are not regulated in any way, or in any meaningful way that meant that this could happen. So, yeah, it's regulation is everything. Dibs, as I like again, the human factors of PMQs, so Prime Minister's questions we have in the UK. So every Wednesday at lunchtime, there is I think it's an hour session for any parliamentarian to ask the Prime Minister questions, and the leader of the opposition gets 6 questions. The leader of the SNP, I think, gets 2 questions. And basically they can throw any questions at them, and it ends up just being more of a pantomime than it does. You get meaningful answers, or you don't even really get meaningful questions. It's stuff that is people trying to make headlines out of it. So yes, probably avoiding the human factors elements of that is probably a good idea. Or as we've seen this week in our parliament, actually, the balance of power is really quite an interesting observation, but this is more psychology than it is HF itself, because we had our entire parliament break down last night in a way that I've just never seen before. That they couldn't, for the reason for somebody trying to do the right thing, in this case the Speaker of the House, could end up quite losing his job because of it. Just fascinating. So yeah, I could talk about that for hours, but that'll be absolutely very little to do with HF and more about my utter fascination with politics.
Oh yeah,
which we have explored in the past.
We have explored that, and that's a fascinating discussion too. Man, that's a good topic. I'm trying to think of other areas in which those are the two that immediately stuck out to me, was the climate ergonomics and the law. And I think those stuck out to me because it's not immediately apparent if work is being done there, especially from like a consumer side of law. Like, I don't know, you get all these like it's tax season. So you get all these tax forms. Like, what do I owe? You know what I owe you. Why is all this, like, that's half policy, half law, half like but then the law comes down when you don't pay it right. So I'm just thinking, like, there's got to be anyway. So those are the things that I thought of. But some of the stretch things that I thought of, but I know are being considered, is like education or ed tech. And I know we've breached this, and I know there's work being done in that space. Maybe I just bring it up because I'm fascinated by it and would love to learn more. But I think there's really some roadblocks when it comes to like children's human factors that are mostly due to experimental IRB regulations and stuff. So you can't like test processes and procedures without going through an IRB, and because they're a protected population, the risk of engaging in an experiment has to be outweigh the. And so when you're experimenting on a child, and education is at stake, it's like test what is versus something else, and the risk is that the something else intervention is going to make the child worse off than if they had just continued on, and so that risk has to be mitigated in as many ways as it can be. And so because of that, I think there's probably not as much research done in the education space, but that's another interesting one to me, is like, how can we use human factors in education and outreach?
I was thinking, what about the music industry? So people playing musical instruments. I mean, I've seen. So my son is doing learning drumming at the moment. Drumming is very loud, therefore it's not necessarily great on the old hearing. And should he be wearing ear defenders when he's drumming because it's very loud? But also posture when you're sat at the drum kit, or you've got your brass instrument of choice slung around your body, your guitar. When you're sat at the piano or the keyboard, are you sat at the right height, and all that sort of stuff? Yeah, as I started unpicking it, they're mostly physical and what you call like old traditional ergonomics. There's a lot of stuff there to play with, but then you get into when you in a band, so then you're talking about collaboration and teaming and all that sort of stuff. So you're looking at them sort of relationships and things like that as well. Is there stuff there that we could unpick? I don't know what the answer is.
Here's a call for the community. Does anybody in the Human Factors community know of a Human Factors practitioner band? I would love to like commission a Human Factors only band to like write an original Human Factors cast intro song. That would be so awesome.
What would you call a Human Factors band? The Ergos.
The Ergogos?
The Ergo Go-Go's.
How about Ergo Go-Go's? You call it user error?
Yeah. What type of band would it be? Would it be a sort of a nice, easy listening, or is it sort of a frustrated heavy rock?
Heavy,
the world's biggest heavy
death metal. Death
Yeah.
metal. Yeah, I can imagine. Hang on. Well, here's speaking of AI, let's bring it back. What would give me 10 names? 10 great names for a band who does Human Factors.
I would say ChatGPT is going to be able to write some lyrics as well. I was writing an article for The Ergonomist and got it to write some jokes for me. They were terrible.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I got it to write poetry as well, and that wasn't any better. Whilst you're waiting for that to come up, the other, I guess, slightly more serious one. Okay. Let's not do serious stuff. Let's crack. Let's. What names have you got?
Cognitive load.
That works. Okay.
Feedback loops.
No, that's boring.
Prototype punk. Gesture assault. Yes, I really like cognitive load, and are there folks that do a jam session at HFES? That'd be great if they made a band and did that. The interface incident.
Cognitive load still seems to be.
I like cognitive load. If anyone wants to take that band name and run with it, I'm giving you permission since I didn't make it. ChatGPT did.
So another area that I think would be worth looking at is the prison service, because the way that you have to, what you're doing is actively restricting somebody's liberty, and so that in of itself is a big deal. But if you're restricting their liberty and having to do things like restrain them and things like that, how are you making sure that you are, you've got to look after people whilst you're doing that, Yes, Martin, it does. Yes.
Chat's on fire tonight. You guys are great. Thank you tonight. This is amazing. The comments tonight have just been top notch. Thank you. You're making me laugh a whole lot. I appreciate this. Martin says, sounds like a grinder handle. Probably to cognitive load.
Which reminds me, Martin, yes, I am coming up next week. We need to pick a day next week to get together. Just had to throw that out there. for public interest. Except Wednesday.
All right, so yours.
Hysteresis effect. Oh. We've been doing over an hour already. Do you realize that?
I do. Yeah. No, it's great.
Hang
on. As we're paused here, just another quick reminder. Hey, if y'all want to be part of the conversation, video on or not, you don't need to. You don't even need a great mic. If you just want to be here with us talking about some of this stuff, there's a little QR code right up here that lets you be a caller. There's a little private chat. Once you get in, you can let us know what you want to talk about, camera on or off, and we'll chat with you in that before you're even on here. So don't worry, it's not going to throw you right on the show. If you want to be part of the conversation tonight, can do so right here. Otherwise, you can leave a chat like y'all have been doing. That has been great so far. And the last thing I'll mention, that if you want to yell obscenities into a void, or your thoughts on any of the human factor stuff tonight, you can leave us a voicemail. We might talk about it on next week's show. So you can get to either of those links right up there as a QR code. I'm going to bring up the Be a Live caller one more time, and I'll leave that up there. All right. I think that about covers it. All right, what now?
Where did we get to? We were still so we were talking about you and different fields for apply. So could you flip it? What fields would you just not apply human factors to? I know we sort of say you can apply human factors to everything, and that's kind of the given. But if there's a field that you just turn around and say, well, actually, no, we're just not going to provide any value to it, what would be one that you would choose?
Space exploration.
Why?
We don't need any of that.
Well, no, that's the field overall. I mean, that's just it's just.
We don't need it there. No, okay. That was a sarcastic remark. I'm sorry, it didn't land. I don't know. Let me think about that for a second. Let me think about if we were to eliminate human factors from any industry, what industry would we eliminate it from? Is that
pretty much? Oh, pretty much, yeah. Oh, and nobody would notice the difference. Which is, I think, slightly different. So there's, in fact, you could argue with most things that people don't notice the difference. I'll possibly pose something a bit harder than I thought was going to be to answer, because I was thinking about things like, whilst we talk about agriculture, just growing vegetables in your allotment, but then you've got how you tend to the plants and things, and that's
let me rephrase your question just a little bit.
Go on then.
If you were to apply it to a global industry, something that's worldwide, that would have an impact on a lot of people, but would maybe not understand the connection of human factors being applied in that industry to their own circumstance. Does that make sense? So the example I'm trying to get at here is like supply chain logistics. Okay? You apply human factors to it, it works out better.
Yeah.
People might notice supply chain is better in the sense that things are on shelves, but they won't really recognize that human factors was the reason why. They might just think the trucks were late, or X, Y, and Z. And so that might be one industry where you have this worldwide thing happening that human factors is a part of, but is not necessarily like observed by the end user of supply chain logistics, who could be anybody. And I think the same could be said for
isn't that true? I mean, I would throw that back and say, isn't that true of anything that we do? Because you could argue, you could take HF out of any project, and the project's not going to stop. And that's the problem we've got, isn't it? That's the constant argument. Because you only notice, I guess it's the kind of argument I was making, is you only notice HF when things go wrong. If you've done HF well, you don't know it's been there. But nobody goes, oh, that was such a beautiful interface to work with, unless you're an HF UXer. is really interesting. Because now that we're playing around with this, there's lots of examples, I think, exactly like the one you just described, that we make it better, but would still go ahead without us, because it has done for many years. Cheese production. But if you're producing cheese in a factory, then we're down to factory thing. If you're producing cheese just in your own back garden type of affair, you'd have to have a big garden, obviously. That's interesting. Esports.
Yeah, I saw esports too, and I'm wondering how, because UX is done in games, maybe not as efficiently as it could because of the gaming industry, but engagement. I've thought about engagement and like media as a human factors issue as well. And I tie engagement and media together. I know they're separate.
Mm-hmm.
But I bring them up together because media is built off of engagement or consumption of their output. It is more entertainment now than it is true reporting. At least that's my feeling on it. It's a whole mess that probably should be addressed at some point, but engagement is interesting.
What about just pure journalism, full stop?
Journalism. Mm-hmm.
So journalism would not actively. You could not. I don't think you could go to a journalist and say, if we apply human factors principles to journalism, we would make their job better.
No, it might make their job harder.
Yeah,
but the end user, the consumer, us, we would benefit from it.
Would we? I mean, and anybody in the chat, correct me as well. I cannot think of what would you apply from an HF perspective to a journalist, to them doing their finding a story, getting a story, doing it, and putting the story out there. How would we make what they do better? I don't think we could. Without taking, because you could argue journalism is an art form. Therefore, okay, I like that. So Dibs has just come up with the error side of things. So there is right. So if they get things, do we add things in there for their fact checking to make sure that they're not telling? I mean, God forbid that we ever suggest that journalists tell lies.
Training.
The software that they use, that's true. Yes. So if they're using word processors and search techniques and all that sort of stuff, you're right. Yes, usability and UX.
Training.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Training.
Journalistic integrity.
I'm still trying to get down to that bare bones of their job, though, of them going to squirrel out they've got the smell of a story. They go and do research. So how they do research, we can make the research more efficient, I guess, their research processes. Because they need to do the fact checking, they need to do all that sort of stuff. How they obviously when they then put the story together, then they use the software and things like that. So that's something. So yeah, you've all just quite happily shot my my idea out.
This is a great discussion. I love this. More of shooting Barry down, please. This is
that is. Well, I then used the idea of journalists because it's artistic. Therefore, would we improve artists?
I absolutely think you can improve artists' work by applying human factors. Exhibit 1, traditional ergonomics, a paintbrush. Can you make a paintbrush more efficient by applying ergonomics to it? I think the answer is yes. I think an art station, yes. The output, maybe not so much, but the output is a product of the input that went into it. And so if you're using tools to assist in your artwork.
But I've never seen on on Amazon, that Bastion of Truth. Everybody sells ergonomic chairs, all ergonomic pens. I've never seen, I don't think, an ergonomic paintbrush.
All right, let's look for it. Let's do a live search.
Leading to the argument that actually, if nobody's been able to make some like really quick bucks off a just chucking the word ergonomic in front of a paintbrush and coming up with a really radical design,
it's an autocomplete in my Google search.
Of course it is. I've now got an image of like maybe a paintbrush that wraps around your finger, or something like that. So,
well, here's the most sort of extreme example that I can find. It looks kind of like a pistol grip.
Okay.
Here, I'll share an image so that way we can all get a visual on this.
Whilst you're doing that, just to loop back to the journalist one, both Dibs and Martin have come around and highlighted journalism is storytelling, interviewing, interrogation, narrative structure, and things. So, oh, that looks like one of the different types of mouse you can get, isn't it? With that sort of, so you're pushing the web of your the web of your thumb into it.
Yeah. So maybe not necessarily for art projects, but if we're talking about art, I absolutely think that the tools and processes that we use to create art, if they have human factors influence on those products, then that directly impacts the outcome of the art. Because if you're more comfortable creating art, that creates a different mindset for you as you're creating this piece of art.
True.
And the opposite is true too. If you use something that is abrasive to use, your art might come out differently because it gives you a different feeling when you use it. And so, okay, yep, there it is.
Thanks, Martin. Somebody had to win the prize. You're there. Fair play.
You know what? He brings up an interesting point though, and I'm gonna say this word: teledildonics. And I think there's an amazing opportunity for human factors in that space, and just that whole adult entertainment, products.
Yes.
I think there's an amazing, like, there's a lot, like, I bring this story up every once in a while, but there was a I don't want to specify how I know this person. They worked on an adult website and they could not show
we've talked about this,
their work in their portfolio, and so they replaced all the thumbnail images of the website that they worked on with kittens, and of course, changed everything. And it was a kitten website that you could go and watch cute cats on. So there is work being done on it.
There's all I'll say is that there is a 1202 interview that I'm trying to secure at the moment, and it'll be the first time I would have to put an E on the I'd have to put an explicit on the on the episode, because I just think it's fascinating, and I think I saw a this sounds really bad. So I think on YouTube, all about
well, it's YouTube. It's probably fine.
About user testing. That was just that I was like, that's just brilliant. That's exactly what we're doing. I would love to do like a conference paper on this and go and present it at like EHF 25 or something. Preferably when I'm not like past president anymore. I don't bring the whole organization disrepute. I just think it would be interesting. Yes, exactly that. Neil, just the use of quote is very apt. But yeah, so if that, how can I say, if that comes off, that sounds very wrong. If this interview happens, then I'll let you know whether we actually get to publish it or not. It'll be fun.
Okay, so we've found a lot of industries.
I say we were talking about stuff before Martin took us off at a tangent.
What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about sort of art as an output of human factors. Yes, yeah.
We were there because actually, Dib sort of mentions about miniature painting. So different thing. And the picture you put up, I used to do a fair bit of World of Warcraft, the miniatures, painting them, and I had devices that you could then use, because holding the miniatures is quite hard work. But it was like a thing that you could put the base into, and it actually gives you a handle to then use to be able to move the piece around so you can paint it. So that is using the use of tools to make.
When I craft, I use helping hands to solder. Like that's another tool, and that's part of my art. Another example here. Think about digital art. Okay, you use Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft Paint. There's a difference in the tool that you use and the caliber of output that you're able to get with those tools. Which is why when you look at some of the Microsoft Paint drawings, and it's like, wow, that's really impressive that you did that in Paint. Because of the caliber of tool, and you know that there's UX research going into those things. And so I would argue that there's some fundamental human factors principles being applied to those tools as the artist is using those tools to express themselves. So I think, that's really interesting too. Yeah, fascinating. Well, I'll tell you what, this has been a pretty great discussion. I think maybe we'll wrap up what the episode should be, and we'll do a little post. Yeah, I mean, like that was a great conversation for an episode, and we'll put a little bow on that. We'll keep going here for a little bit, but geez, it's been so long since we've done this. I need to find my outro stuff. Again, we're not going anywhere. We'll still be here. I'm just going to say a little outro for the podcast, but you all true believers here sitting here live with chat, you stick around. We'll still be here. Notes. I got to find my show notes.
All right. It's been a minute.
It has been a whole month, in fact. All right. Well, that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode, enjoy some of the discussion around human factors, topics of interest, go listen to some of our other episodes, especially like the agriculture one. That's a good one to listen to, since we talked a little bit about that. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of our topic this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest human factors news. Find out about it as we do. If you like what you hear and want to support the show, there's a couple things you could do. 1, leave us a 5-star review wherever you're watching or listening. Tell your friends about us. That truly helps the show grow. And 3, if you have the financial means to, and don't mind us being gone every once in a while, there's a little, you can support the show on Patreon. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about teledildonics?
That's going to be the future episode, hopefully. But you can find me talking to interesting people in the human factors community, and we've actually got episodes up this year. It's amazing. You can go and find us at 1202podcast.com. And if you want to come chat to me personally, then find me on all the socials, Baz_K, and other variations on that.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Rome. You can find me across social media at Nick_Rome. If you want to tune in for a little bonus conversation, go and find our full discussion on YouTube, Twitch, any of the streaming platforms, LinkedIn as well. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the AT&T, T-Mobile carrier outage that happened today. So go check that out for a post show. I said, as for me, and thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. Okay, wrap the episode. Great. Yes, this is a great point. Did you see this happen today with the AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon outage?
I've got no idea what you're talking about, so no.
So this was a U.S. thing that was caused by a solar flare, and a lot of the U.S. carriers went down this morning. And what's interesting is that a lot of the telecommunications are built on top of these networks. And so I actually got an email at work today saying, hey, a lot of our colleagues are out because of AT&T. And, just be aware that if you can't reach somebody, this is probably what's going on. So, Neil echoes, it was bad. So this is actually brought up by Gregory in the chat. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Is there going to be a discussion about the AT&T outage that happened today? Yeah, it was actually, like I said, nationwide, multiple carriers, affected a lot of different things. I'm on, my internet is based on T-Mobile. and I wasn't impacted. I don't know if that's just my region, but the like I unfortunately still had a full day of work on I had to do. So as far as we know, it wasn't a cyber attack. It was the official statement is a solar flare. Let me see if I can find an official statement from.
That's what they tell everybody.
Although you did have other things trending today on the X, formerly known as Twitter, such as "Leave the World Behind." Yeah, the statement was that it was a solar flare. NASA 9 hours ago, Sun releases 2 strong flares.
But it is interesting, that isn't it? Our reliance on comparatively few structural networks, and that can be affected by things that are just so out of our control. So it's like everybody uses, for navigation, use GPS systems. That's why one of the reasons why the European side and the UK side is trying to create their own versions of GPS, because if the American GPS system goes out, everyone's shot. Nobody can do, because it's not just as simple as you can't get from A to B. Because so much is reliant on the GPS system.
Yeah, here's the official statement. This is from NOAA. 2 major solar flares, effects on cellular networks unlikely. Well, whoops. Although I think was this. While solar flares can affect communication systems, it's highly unlikely that these flares contributed to the widely reported cellular network outage. Okay, so this is actually okay. This plot is thickening here. Are we uncovering something here by using journalism? Maybe.
That's scary.
But I'm gonna keep digging.
If not, let's bring back conspiracy theory, because that's awesome.
Let's see here.
But again, because solar flare does appear on a number of risk registers now that it didn't previously. So, and as we do more and more, I guess more and more in space and get a better understanding, because there's other risks out there that we don't necessarily think of because we don't see it. But like the whole space junk thing, there is that much junk in space from old satellites and things like that that we're just not taking account of anymore, which is crazy. Have you found more shizzle?
I'm searching AT&T outage. Why?
Ask ChatGPT. I bet ChatGPT has a theory.
Nah. Let's see here. Oh. Everything we know about the massive AT&T outage. This is from Digital Trends. Where was it? Yeah, is predominantly on the East Coast, but into the middle of the country as well, and then Southwest. So I'm kind of isolated up here in the Pacific Northwest from this incident. Let's see here. Why? Does it say why?
Interesting. I have just put into ChatGPT to say what caused the AT&T outage. And whereas historically it would have just turned around and said, I don't know because I don't have access to current things, it now says that it seems that there's an issue accessing detailed information on the AT&T page. Because using ChatGPT 4 and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Neil's got the jokes tonight.
Yeah, is there? So Neil suggested the ChatGPT suggesting is due to chemtrails, which is fair. So I went further with ChatGPT and said, well, what could the outage be caused by, rather than saying what is it? And at number 4, human error. Mistakes made during maintenance, configuration changes, or software updates can inadvertently cause outages. Simple errors can cascade through a network. Just not wrong.
Well, here's a website that I don't necessarily trust, but we'll read some of it. I'm not going to source it right now. I don't know anything about this author. All right, let's see here. You have White House National Secretary, a security spokesperson, John Kirby, told reporters the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security were looking into the outage. Kirby said U.S. officials have been told AT&T currently has no reason to believe that the outages were from a cybersecurity incident. He added that the Department of Commerce's communications were affected, but the extent of that disruption was not crippling. The FCC said on social media it was also investigating the outages, had been in contact with AT&T. Let's see here. I'm reading through this article here to see if there's anything else worthwhile pulling out. Yeah. FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and FCC looking into this matter. So I saw somewhere solar flare, but you can't believe everything you read on the internet. So who knows? I mean, we can talk about sort of what a massive cybersecurity issue this could be if this was intentional. Because you think about what this has done, or what this can do. Leave the World Behind is a movie on Netflix that you can go and watch, and it's something that everyone was bringing up. But I think it fails to. It shows a small slice of what life would be like if there was some sort of attack like this. But I think some of the larger systematic things that it affects might be more damaging than that movie might illustrate, right? So it does depict a cargo ship crashing into the beach, but I can imagine you have emergency services and people who need emergency services who are unable to communicate, and so you're unable to get people the care that they need in life-threatening situations. Emergency response for things like fires. That could be really bad. So that's just scratching the surface, not even thinking about maybe some of the deeper impacts that it could have on us. But you're right in the sense that it's crazy that we're built on top of this network that could be crippled by something like this. And where do we build in redundancies in the system?
Well, it's that sort of thing, isn't it? Actually, if we're talking about safety critical systems, then actually I think we pretty much there. We get that now. But on our day-to-day life, I mean, just imagine. So one of the issues that came up during COVID, where everybody had to stay indoors and all that sort of stuff, was a huge leap in people having mental health issues, or feeling lonely, feeling depressed, feeling stressed, etc., because everything was going on. Could you imagine if you lose through EMP or something like that, all of your social media, you lose all of the accessibility, the access to information that you're used to. So we know if something happens, something goes wrong, you can search X, you can search any of your social medias for keywords, etc., and you will be able to find out what's going on the other side of the world relatively quickly. And you suddenly lose all of that for whatever reason. It will not only have interesting effects on services, government, etc., but it will have such strong personal effects, because you will have to change the way that you live. you survive. Your access to information, it's almost having data so close to hand. It's like a drug, because you can get that information so quickly. You get that hit so quickly to appease that the question that you've got, and you'd lose all of that. And I think a lot of people would significantly struggle with that really quickly.
Anyone know Lee McKnight?
No.
NBC News reached out to Lee to speculate on the cause. He says the most likely cause of the outage is a cloud misconfiguration, which is, quote, a fancy word for saying human error. So yeah, Neil brings up a great point here in chat. We become addicts. There would be massive information withdrawal.
Yeah.
I think so. Absolutely. We're searching for information on this show live.
This is it. I mean, we wouldn't be. I mean, let's face it. We wouldn't be able to without the structures and technology in place. We are talking in real time, a few thousand miles apart,
halfway across the world.
Yeah, I mean, we've never met face to face. Yeah, we're good friends. We share information, all that sort of stuff. And we can have this real time chat with access to the same sources of information because we've got access to the internet. You won't be able to make that happen. So we can easily talk about stuff, find the same source of information, and then produce an opinion on it. Which you just wouldn't be able to do, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you just wouldn't be able to work in this way. And the whole the information withdrawal piece, I think, is absolutely true because people now make a big deal of going on a holiday, you going somewhere where you can't get mobile signal. So you cannot be tempted to try and get the information off you. It's not just the sake of saying, I want to go somewhere and I'm going to leave my phone at home, or I'm going to do something. You have to go somewhere that will forcibly stop you from being able to access all this information. And we have to have that in our lives now. I'm not too bad. If I know I'm going on holiday, I can leave my phone down. I cannot leave it at the side of the bed or whatever. But I know there's many people who just can't do that. You wake up in the middle of the night, you have to check your phone. You first thing in the morning, before you brush your teeth or go to the loo or anything like that, you have to go and check the phone just in case somebody's messaged you in them 6 hours. You were asleep, and then they were asleep at the same time as well. So chances are they haven't messaged you. But the world might have changed rapidly,
unless it's me.
That's true. Yes,
I do message you in the middle of the night, and I apologize for that, but I try not to.
My phone's on silent, so I don't. This is interesting because I'm happy to have my phone beside my bed. I have it on silent because I use it for my alarm, but I don't feel a need to check it in the middle of the night. I will quite happily turn over. I mean, I'll pick up my Kindle. My Kindle is
this is interesting. Let's have this conversation because I absolutely do feel that urge, but only when I'm thinking about something that I need an answer to get my mind to stop racing. Do you do that?
No, I don't. I tend to, if it's severely bad, yes. But then I'll have got to the stage where, when you're tossing and turning, you can't sleep. I think if I can get myself to do it, the solution to that is to get up, go downstairs, maybe get a glass of water. And if you need to search something, yes, go and do that. Then I wouldn't necessarily do that in bed. What I would more likely do is pick up my Kindle and read my Kindle. And read my book to try and get myself back to sleep. I don't tend to try and chase that sort of stuff down. It's not often I wake up with that sort of that thing buzzing at the back of your head where you're like, I must try and work out what this is. My one kind of half solution to that is if there is something like that I'm thinking I must do something about, I will write that down. And almost it goes into the sort of the to-do list of must look at this in the morning. Mm-hmm. But equally, I know a lot of people who just couldn't do that. You must go and look at it now because it's buzzing in your head.
Yep. Yep. I get that maybe once a week where I go to bed and I'm trying to sleep and I'm like, oh, I need an answer to this thing. What is that thing? It's got to be a thing, like, or I think about something that I hadn't thought about during the day, and I'm like, got to get a resolution on this before I go to bed.
But we've also become. I was trying to work out a model of this the other day. We become, in our consummation of information, we become multi-layered, and this isn't in an academic sense. This is if you're watching a movie, do you scroll your phone at the same time? So I was sat watching the what's the new Marvels film? Is it the Marvels?
The Marvels. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's what it's called. Which is the first time I'd seen it. I thought it was really good. I was sat there with my wife and my children, and they were all on their phones whilst they're watching film, because they could look up bits of whatever and all this sort of stuff. But they're heads into their phone and watching the film at the same time. And I was there going, actually, I'm watching the film, and I'm going, actually, you're missing all of this stuff, and they weren't. They were still being able to judge in the information from both sources. I'm like, right. Whoa.
It's funny because my wife and I will sit there watch a movie, and I have two modes. I'm like watch a movie mode and watch other things mode. Like watch. I guess it's like watch storytelling versus watch, like trash TV. Like Love Is Blind is back. So excited. But the movie mode, I very much like sit, I watch, I respect, it's art. Not that the other stuff isn't, but you're right. Like my wife will sit there and she'll like look up people on IMDb. Where do I know this person from? And she's still getting everything. But she's doing that live in the moment. And I'm like, that's a post TV task for me, or post movie task.
That is a classic for us, because I'll be sat there going, oh, what was that person in? And it's a rhetorical question, because all I'm sort of suggesting is we recognize that they're a famous actor and they've been in something else. But my wife can't deal with that. She has to then a couple of minutes later she'll say, oh, they were in this. This
is what we know them from. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't actually really want to know. I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But that could have waited. You didn't have to from your viewing experience.
And then there's very much the other like flip side where I'm watching like reality TV or something. I mentioned Love Is Blind. There might be like a slow episode or something boring, or like I need to get through it just to say I've gotten through it and to see how it resolves. And if it's slow or boring, or there's a storyline that I'm not interested in, I'll pull out my phone and maybe check something while I'm getting through that part. It's kind of like just a distraction to get through that part that is like hard to get through, but I wouldn't do that, I don't think, for a movie or TV show. I'd pause if I needed to do that, because my mind doesn't work that way.
It is interesting seeing how people will analyze and process in multiple sources of information, and we are so much more used to it now than we ever have been. It'll be interesting to see if we could, going back to the original thing, if all that was then to disappear, and I wonder how easily we would be able to be quiet, or to live with quiet in our minds, because at the moment you are bombarded all the time, even if you're not necessarily into stuff, the same sort of stuff as we are, but you have lots of information being thrown at you all the time on multiple layers. If all that was to disappear, how would you deal with it? Because I know what I'm like when I try and go on holiday, and not be at the pace that I am when I'm at work, and I'm trying to manage multiple things and things, and I lie there and I'm like, I can't. I should be doing things. I should be up at 6 o'clock. I should be this whole just sitting around doing nothing, reading a book. Well, that's difficult. It takes me days to get into it, and even then I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, for me, when I go on holiday, or vacation, as we like to call it here in the States. It's interesting because I don't think the like need isn't necessarily there, because we find things to do with our time, to like check all the time, and there's usually things that we fill our time with while we're out on vacation. But the thing that always strikes me when I'm on those trips is the nights where you're in the hotel room or you're just sitting around, day's over, kind of reflecting on the day, and you check the news, and like it seems like everything has changed, or there's been like some big announcement or something that's happened while you were away. And it's like, would I have missed this in a normal day? And how would I have reacted on a normal day? So those are the things that get me, because it's like, oh, this big thing, this big announcement. And then if you really think about how big these announcements are, does it matter? Well, it could matter to you in your world, but at a global level, has anything really changed? I mean, there are news stories that change things. There are. But I'm talking about like a Star Wars trailer drops while I'm on vacation. I'm like, dang it, I missed it. Or, like, how did I miss this big news? So it's things like that where you're like, I missed this big thing. And it is one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm just so normally so connected. It's like in between meetings, pull out your phone, see what's going on. Yeah, it's speaking of Love Is Blind, there's a couple episodes where this guy is just on his phone, and it's that's all I'll say. And if you know, you know. He's just buried in his phone. I think the McRib is back. Oh no, I missed that news. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We had a good run. We'll be back. Maybe next month. We'll see. Look, we're not holding any promises here. We're gonna we truly do try every week, and for one reason or another, the last couple of weeks just did not work out. And so we will try every week. And if we're not here next week, we'll try the next week, and we'll always give you a little bit of heads up. If in the meantime you want to leave us a nice little voicemail that says, you guys are doing great, and it's okay that you're gone for a little bit. We'll be here when you get back. You can leave us a voicemail right here. I'd love to hear all of your voices saying, it's okay. Yeah. We still love you.
Please just let us know that it's all okay.
Not like we need a validation or affirmation or anything, but yeah, there's that. And if we like it enough, we'll play it on the show. So there's that. We've already mentioned multiple places where you can find us. I just want to take a minute to we've had some really active chat tonight, and I I cannot tell you how much that changes the trajectory of our conversation. When we're able to react to chat, when we're able to take your comments, incorporate them into the larger discussion, bring a variety of voices to the table that maybe are, Barry and I can't represent just by ourselves. That truly makes the show something special and is one of the main reasons why I love doing this. So please join us next time we do this. We'd love to have you. And if you want to be on the show, maybe work up the courage or leave us a voicemail. We'd love that. You don't even have to say who you are if you leave a voicemail. You could just voice your opinion. If you want a voice changer, I got programs. I could change your voice. If you want to leave something kind of controversial, you could do that too. Anyway. All right, we'll go ahead and end there. Thank you all so much. Barry, anything else you want to say, plug before we get out of here?
No, the only thing I'm going to do now is go to bed because I'm really tired.
Yeah, all right.
That's awesome.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.